Hello, beautiful souls out there. I hope you're able to get out in nature like Starlight is. And I don't know what happened, but I just arrived here and I got birds surrounding Starlight right now. It's all that love. It is so funny. There was no birds here and I don't even have any food here. But they can feel the love from Starlight and they're just, it is so funny. So anyway, I love you so much. Ooh. And I hope you're getting out in nature like Starlight is. And so what a beautiful day it's out here. I laugh because it's late right now for Starlight. And I have been running around today. And so anyway, it feels great to just sit down. And I hope you're getting out. And if you are new to my YouTube channel, welcome. And you can find me on YouTube, and that is at Starlight, and that is Kathy with a K Dingman. Plus you can give my videos a thumbs up, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. And don't be afraid, don't be shy, swing by and say hi to Starlight by leaving Starlight a message down below. Beep beep beep. And you can also check out my playlist, and you could share my videos with your family, your friends. How about some birds? Some of them are disappearing, but there's a lot of birds. And how about some ducks? You know, there's a lot of ducks out here. Quack quack. And also you can follow me on Instagram or on Facebook at 1995 Starlight, or on Facebook, and that is Kathy with a K Dingman Starlight. And also any of you who would like to help Starlight out by sending her love, by sending her some donations, I would really appreciate it. And you could do that on my Cash app, and that you can get off the Play Store on your devices or your computer, and that is you could download that and then add money to that debit card or that app, and then, you know, send Starlight some love or donations to her Cash app. So, and I appreciate the people that have already done that. Thank you so much. It's much, I am so grateful for anyone who has given or has helped me out on this journey. Thank you so much. And another huge thank you to all of you who have been here and love and support in Starlight, and also watching my videos, giving me thumbs up, subscribing to my YouTube channel, or even leaving me a comment down below, or even sharing my videos. And this was shady here, so Starlight is gonna be back. Hello, I'm back. So yeah, it's funny, I thought this shade was gonna go over this way, but I was wrong. It ended up being the sun because everything's changed over here. So anyway, thank you to all of you who've been here loving and supporting Starlight. And this video is about people who are in toxic relationships or abusive ones. And when I say that, that could be anybody that you're dealing with. It could be family members. Can family members be abusive and toxic? You bet your ass. Or you might be going out with someone, or you might even, you know, and I'll tell you what, if you just started seeing someone and they're already toxic, run. You know, that is like, because I've been in one of those before. I wasn't planning on, you know, going out with them, but wow, that person was showing me their true colors, like, you know, in my face. So I was like, you know, we had enough of that, you know, bye. So yes, so if you're, I'm sorry about these little bugs out here. I'm new to this area, so anyway, you could be even married to somebody like that, you know, where, you know, you feel uncomfortable, you don't have that freedom, you know. And I'll tell you what, I don't put up with that stuff anymore, you know, like toxic people, you know, I avoid them like the plague, you know. And if there's somebody toxic, Starlight's going the other way. So it is very difficult though if you live with that person, you know. And so if you're like in a toxic relationship or you're in an abusive relationship, you know, and that all depends on, you know, there's a lot that can be going on in that situation, you know. And there's people that are single that could be living with family members, or you could be a roommate with somebody, you know, not that you're going out with each other, but, you know, and this is why it's so important. Don't get desperate. You know, there's times that people think that, they have a choice in their life. Okay, well, you could go the easy way or this path. You know, you come to that fork in the road, and we've all been there somewhere in our life. Hang on, I gotta see if this is gonna get better over here because the lighting here. So yeah, you're gonna come to this fork in the road, and you need help. And the one way, we'll say it's the wide way, because the wide way is the way to destruction, you know, like by following other people. But the wide way, you're like, well, I could take this route here, and the person here, they're gonna help me out, and you know, they know I'm in a financial situation, things didn't go out good for me. And or you could take this route over here where you're looking at it and you're like, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. Where this wide way here, it's like, well, gee, they're offering for me to move in with them. I don't have to pay any rent. And, you know, I just got to help out with the food, you know, because, you know, that's where, you know, they're already paying that money, you know, that I just got to buy my own food or help out with the food and pay my own, you know, maybe you have a car or, you know, maybe you don't. So this is how a lot of people get in those kind of situations. A lot of the time is because they were taking the easy way. They were taking like, you know, hey, this way looks easier for me. I don't have to do much work to get, you know, but they weren't, you know, they weren't really thinking of all the details in that situation. And I've had to go through that many times in my life where I ended up living in my car. I said, you know, I got that option there, that option there. I might have had like 3 different options, more than a fork in the road. You know, it might have been all kinds of, you know, ways that I could have gone. I could have gone over here, live with that family member, or, you know, go over here, live with that person, you know, have a whole trailer to myself. Like right now, like if I, you know, I got places that I can go right now. If this wasn't going to work, it's funny, is that I could go over this way, I could go over that way, or this way, you know, there's different angles that I could do different things, but where I am is where I want to be. And this is the hardest one to actually do. All the other ones would be easier, but my freedom, you know, I don't have anybody telling me what to do, you know. So a lot of people, they get in those kind of situations because they get desperate and they think, well, the easy way is the way to do it, you know, and they didn't want to go that extra mile and do the hard work by going out and getting a job and going out looking for a job, going to get a job, you know, and going through that whole process of doing it on your own. Instead, you know, you might have been one of these people that I'm talking about, is that you might have gone the easy route, thinking that, hey, this is less work. And that's really, in life that I've learned, I learned that at a very young age, you know, I learned not to depend on people. I learned that at a very young age, you know, with getting a ride from somebody, you know, getting help from, you know, it was lessons after lessons, and they were very painful. So those are things that, you know, you might be in a situation right now, an abusive, a toxic relationship, and you might, how did you get there? You know, how did you get in that situation in the first place? There's people, they get into situations. Now, if it's family member that's helping you out, you know, this is the thing. If you're in a toxic relationship, you don't want to hurry up and just go and live with somebody else to get out of that relationship, to go, you know, and somebody's like, hey, you know, you might have a friend or another family member or somebody out there that hears your story and knows what you're going through. Of course, do they know the whole story? Do they know, you know, the ins and outs? So, you know, are you being honest with them about what's going on? That's the, you know, a lot of times people don't say the whole story. They just say what they want people to hear. They don't say the rest of the story, you know, so it's not really 100% the truth. Even though you didn't lie, it's not the full truth, because you're leaving story, bits and pieces out. So, that is the one thing that you don't want to do, is just get moved in with somebody else. If you're in a toxic relationship or an abusive relationship, there are places that can help you out, and help you to get out of that situation. And I mean, if it's abusive, where it's really, really, really bad, like, there's different kinds of abuse, like verbal abusive, psychologically abuse, where somebody's like playing with your head and they're just getting out of you. Because I've been in situations like that, either family or people out there, where they were just playing mind games with me a lot. So Starlight doesn't like that kind of stuff. And then there's physical abuse, or there's this and I'm not sure what the name is, so I'm not going to try to say the name, but there is different levels of rape in relationships. But when it comes to a man or a woman, and most of the time it's going to be a woman, not a man. How many men get raped, by a woman? It happens, but it's more likely it's not going to happen with a man being raped by a woman. But as far as like a girlfriend and boyfriend, or husband and wife, there's a different name for it. It's when a man wants to have sex with his girlfriend or wife. She doesn't want to, but he has ways of always getting what he wants. And that's like, that means really that the woman needs to, use her voice better and say no. No is no, If she doesn't want to, even if they're in a relationship, and she says no, and he kind of gets his way, but she's got to be, women just can't. I had to learn that one the hard way, when somebody's quiet and shy and they don't really have a voice, and then when somebody is doing that to them, and depending on their childhood and the way they were brought up in the world, depending on what kind of parents they had, they might have, grew up not having a voice, and so a lot of men don't understand that. They think, well, she should have said something, or she should have this, but at the same point is that, if somebody says no, that is no, and that is the, so women do have to speak up, and you can also go out, and if it's really serious, like any physical abuse, or like I said, like there's different forms of rape, whether you're going out with that person or not, is you can go and, make phone calls, go see therapy, but you really want to really plan on, either communicating with that person and saying, no more, because there's different kinds of men out there. They don't think that it's really wrong to do what they're doing, and you might have to educate them, but you got to be that voice to speak up and demand that they don't do that, and if they still pressure you into doing something that goes against what you want to do, that's when you're going to have to take you're going to have to do something about that. You're not going to feel comfortable in the house, with that person. And there's different reasons why women don't want to have sex with the man that they're with. So sometimes a woman might need to go get help and, counseling and therapy, with a therapist or a counselor or something like that, someone that, they're not going to talk behind your back and talk to other people about what's going on. But you do need to reach out for help somewhere. And even if you're in a controlling relationship where, you have no rights, they're taking your free will away, and, they control you, like, all the time, telling you what to do. You got to decide on if that's acceptable to you or not. And if it makes you feel uncomfortable and you don't like it, you can communicate. Number one, communicate and let them know, hey, you're telling me what to do too much. You're over controlling, and I don't like it. And if you keep doing this, I'm going to break up with you. I cannot be in this kind of a situation. And that goes for men and women. There's a lot of women I've been around my whole life, and that's why I had issues with females my whole life, is being around women that were controlling men and using them all the time, and belittling them and bossing them around like they were some kind of supervisor, and they weren't, making them feel guilty. I've known men that, they worked their ass off around the house, but when they sat down, it's almost like they didn't want to see them sit down and relax. They were always on them and, hey, you need to go do this, and hey, you need to go do that. And it's up to you what you're going to put up with. If you don't like having somebody to tell you what to do all the time and boss you around, that you got to communicate with them. You got to communicate with them about what is bothering you. They might never been told that, you might even, if everything else in a relationship is going great, but they're over controlling, or they got jealous issues, because there are people like that. They have issues with jealousy, where it might be something that they've dealt with in other past relationships, and that is something that you have to address with that person, because people that are over jealous, they might not want you to go out in public, because they have trust issues. You might have never did anything to them, but they could have trust issues with females, because like all of us, we've all been hurt, and that goes even with women having jealous issues with men. If they, it's something that they need to heal inside of them, to let that go, and build more trust with that person, so they're not, ruining the relationship by being over jealous of things that are going on, when you didn't do anything wrong. So those are things that you got to watch out for, is if somebody's over jealous, and they can actually be revengeful and, and a childish behavior. And so you got to really, those people there, they're going through something that you might not have any clue about. And it doesn't mean that it's not a something that you can't work on. But no matter what situation you are in, if it's abusive relationship, you definitely need to, physically abusive, you really need to get a hold of the police officers at, go and communicate with them. Or even, you might have to even, if it's going on right now, you're going to have to really make that phone call. And, but don't, when it comes to a physical abusive relationships, you don't want to add wood to the fire, you don't want to irritate them and get the person worse than what they already are. So there's times that relationships, when people are in relationships, that's exactly what they do, is they add wood to the fire. And it's best not to keep on saying something and arguing with that person, because it's not going to really help them out as far as their emotions and what they're going through. And it means that they need healing. And that is why it's so important that you don't rush into a relationship, because you got to really know, are they going to be, because even people that are jealous could be abusive, like because of, jealousy. So you really got to know the kind of people you're dealing with, and, have they been abusive before to other women, or has she been abusive to other men? And so it is really important, if they're really overdoing it, is that you got to have a plan. You got to make a plan, and you got to, if kids are involved, you really need to get a hold of the police officers. And even if it's name calling, name calling is really bad. It hurts. It really does hurt when somebody's calling you names. But you really need to get your kids in a safe environment if you do have kids, if you got loved ones that, can be of help. And like I said, though, you don't really want to get yourself in a worse situation. But if you do have kids, you're going to have to reach out in the community. And these days, everything is different. They might have different ways of doing things than they did long time ago. You know, for the safety of the kids, you don't want to keep your kids in a very toxic environment, you know, with yelling and fighting and all that stuff. It's not good for their well-being, and it really puts a lot of fear in them, and the self-blame, and a lot of things it can create into the kids. So you really want to make sure your kids are safe. But no matter if you're a man or a female, any guy or female can be abusive in so many different ways. So if you really love yourself, and I hope you do, it's best that you have a plan. You know, if you're already working, is what I've learned in my past is really when it comes to where you don't feel comfortable and you've already communicated. Okay, you did the communication stuff. You communicated and said, hey, you know, this is what you're doing to me, this is how I feel. And if they continue to do that behavior by making you feel small and making you not feel safe in the home that you're living in, you're really going to really want to make a plan B. If they're not really being like physically abusive or anything too dangerous, you know, like in that kind of way, is you're going to really want to think of ways to getting out of that situation. And Starlight has done that before, is to, you know, save money and, you know, maybe even look for a job that where you can get more money, you know, and stop spending a lot of money so you can save money so you can actually, you know, get out of that situation. But you're going to want to go out into the community, out there somewhere, and they do have resources, you know, and they can actually help you to get out of that dangerous situation if it's a physical abusive relationship that you're in. But if it's a toxic relationship where they're just their energy, they're name calling, they're just draining your energy and all that stuff, you're really gonna want to get out of that relationship. I always believe it's best to communicate first with those people. Sorry about the bugs out here. But if you can communicate and let them know, hey, I don't like what you're doing, I don't like how you're treating me, give them some space, see if they're going to change. And if they don't, if they, you know, keep on doing it, you're going to want to do something different. You're not going to want to stay in that. It's not good for your health. It really can do such damage with you emotionally, you know, physically. It can really spiral. That's what it can do. Stress can really, I'm amazed of all the things that stress can do. And so you don't want to ignore that. And it's not something that you want to rush into another relationship. You know, there might be people out there that says, hey, you could stay with me. Hey, you could stay with me. Don't take the easy way out, because if you do, you might end up finding yourself in a worse situation than where you are right now. And that's why it's so important, if it's especially if it's a abusive relationship, you call the cops. You know, you got to call the cops. And you know, if they've already done that before, they're going to more than likely do that again. And that's what I taught my daughter is, you know, don't put up with that stuff, you know, is a lot of times people that are abusive, they will do it again, and they need help, you know. So you don't want to name call them because they're going through something, but you want to get yourself in a safe situation. If you got some family member that you know that it would work, then there's no problem doing that. But, you know, there's situations, of course, you're going to live under their rules of the house. Can you see yourself dealing with that? Are you going to, you know, there's places that will offer you help, and it might work out for you. And I'm not saying just because there's somebody out there offering help that it's not going to work, but you really got to think of what you can handle. And you just never know what it's like to, you really don't know anybody until you live with them. You know, so anyway, please, if you're in any of those kind of relationships, you better make a plan. You gotta make a plan. Stop spending so much money. You know, cut back, save money, have a plan. You know, if it's really like what I did before, is not to say anything that you're, you know, if you communicated and they still are doing it, that's a good indicator that they're going to keep on doing it. you know, and it's just going to keep on circling around all the time, over and over again, and they're not changing, you know. You can also ask if they want to go to therapy. If they're not willing to go to therapy and counseling and work on this, get the blank out. Really, it's not worth it, you know, because your stress and your peace of mind is everything, and your joy and all that stuff, a good night's sleep. You know, you don't want to be tossing and turning all the time and feeling uncomfortable in the own place that you live. So you don't have to tell them what you're gonna do, but, you know, and don't tell anybody else what you're gonna do. Is save money, you know, cut back, don't say anything, save that money. And, you know, where you can find a place that you can move and get out of there, you know, especially if it's not anything really, really serious. At least this way you could save up money and have a plan. Or you might, you know, because it is really hard living with somebody, they might not want you to go. And it could end up being abusive if you let them know that you're leaving. Because if they're not willing to change and they're content with you, but they have some kind of problem that they're dealing with, they might not want to see you go, and it could end up being an abusive relationship after that, because something inside of them needs you. And so that's why it's best not to say anything if you're gonna you know, find a place and get out of there, because you could make things worse than what they are right now. It's like kind of like going to a job and you've worked there for several years, and you know, and now you want to, you know, get out of that job, and now you're going to give them, what, I don't know, like a 2 weeks notice that, hey, I'm going to leave this job. And isn't it a freaking nerve-wracking feeling is to go back to that job when things were not going good in that job, you know, and then you got to go back and you got to do those hours for the 2 weeks, and but you get paid. But isn't it a bitch to go back every day and see the same people, and they're all talking bad about you and, you know, backstabbing you like never before? And, you know, it's not really too much different than trying to leave a toxic relationship or abusive relationship. You know, it's a very nerve-wracking situation to just live there, because now that person knows, and you know, you might not sleep with them during that time of wanting to get out of there, but you know, it's a very uncomfortable feeling. So anyway, I love you is, don't put yourself in those situations. Think before you know, and that's why you don't want to jump right into a relationship. And understand, some of these people, they will go get help. Not all the people will. And you know, you got to communicate though. You know, you might say, hey, everything's going great with this person, but this is where, you know, this is a problem for me. Communicate with them. If they really, really, superly love you, they will work on it. And don't, you know, don't pressure them. Give them their space that they could work on that. If they really love you, they will do it, you know. If they don't really love you, it will show, because they won't take any action. They won't go to therapy. They won't work on it, you know. And so I love you so much. This is Starlight. You can give this video a thumbs up. You could subscribe to my YouTube channel. Plus, you could leave me a message down below, beep, 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 and you can share my videos with your family, your friends. Let's see, some fish, because there's a lake here, and some turtles. And also, you could check out my playlist, and you can find me on Instagram at 1995 Starlight, or on Facebook, and that is Kathy with a K, Dingman Starlight. Sorry, I got an itch. So I love you all, and so learn your lesson. Don't jump right into a relationship. You know, people get, you know, getting in a relationship for the wrong reason, you know, pushing things, speeding things up, and then, you know, Starlight's been very patient in where I am, but, you know, so I've been very patient for that special someone out there. And you just got to make sure that, you know what you're getting yourself into, and communicate with them. That is the, you know, if they don't want to work on themselves, then hey, let somebody else deal with that stuff. They need help though, so don't be mean and rotten to those people. They need help. They need healing. I love you so much. This is Starlight. Namaste. This is Starlight. Love, light, and peace.